In May 2013, I got married. After I got married, we came back to Missouri, where my family lives. We didn't want to stay with my parents, so we went ahead and started looking for an apartment. After we found an apartment we thought we liked, we went and looked at the show flat. It was beautiful, and it was everything that we could have hoped for. Although the money wasn't really the issue at the time, we met with the owner of the property, we put money down on it, and with that, we ended up getting the place. It took us a little while to get in, and we did ask to see the apartment that we were actually going to be living in beforehand, and the owner told us at the time that it was being re-renovated and that there was no way for it was not going to be ready to be shown until around the time that we were moving in. The guy seemed knowledgeable, and we took him for his word. And with that, we waited until the day we got our keys. Well, the day that we get our keys and go to move in, once we opened the door, I was just blown away with the amount of things wrong with the apartment. There ended up being over 26 counts of things wrong with the apartment. Our next door neighbors, their apartment, we found out within a day or two that they were about ready to be condemned. And then we talked to a few health inspectors, and our place was right along with it, about ready to be condemned. And we knew that there was no way that I could have my son living there, that it was unsafe. So I immediately, after finding this out, I called my mother and asked her if she could watch my son for a little bit longer. At this time, it was about July, and we wanted to make sure that, my son was taken care of, so my mom agreed to watch him a little bit longer since, he was pretty much raised at our house, because before I got married, that's where we were living, was with my mom, and she had no problem with it. He was in between preschool and starting kindergarten, and so, it was summer break. It's not like, it would be disrupting his schooling or anything, and she had no issues with that. I did explain that, I just started my job working for AT&T at the time, and it was going to take me a little bit of money, a little bit of time to come up with the money to get into my, get into a new place, because we just put down like $1,800 for a security deposit, and, at the time, I was in my early 20s, and there was no way humanly possible to come up with that large amount of money at one time. So I was working and doing everything I was supposed to. Jaden was my mom. I would come and make sure I would check on him and see how he was doing, and he was always doing really good, and there was no issues until about July-ish, whenever I didn't hear from my mom all day, and so I called her when I got off work. Nobody, they didn't, usually they would call me on my break, and I would talk to Jaden and see how he was doing, and they didn't call on my break, they didn't call on my lunch, they didn't call, and it really worried me. And when I got off work, I called, and my mom says she couldn't talk at the moment. I was like, why can't you talk? She was like, DFS is at the house. And I was like, what do you mean DFS is at the house? Like, why? And she was like, well, Jaden was supposed to be laying down for a nap. And as you know, we have, like, locks on the door so that, he doesn't just walk out the front door, because, he was 4 going on 5 at the time. And, you don't want him to get ran over by a car or anything like that. He was supposed to be laying down for a nap, and my mom was laying down, and so was my stepdad, and Jaden ended up getting up before they did, and their back door is glass, and you can see outside, you can see the neighbors and their kids and anybody who's outside, you can see right out the door. Jaden saw kids in the next yard over, and he decided he wanted to go out and play. Instead of, letting my stepdad know that he was awake, he ended up pushing a kitchen chair up against the back door, opening it up, and going outside to play with these kids. Granted, the yard's fenced in, and, you know, yes, he was outside by himself for a few moments before they woke up and realized that he was outside. I mean, it was the middle of July, so I mean, and it's not like it was raining or, you know, severe weather or anything like that, but that's why they ended up showing up. And they told me if I didn't pick my son up, that he was going to be placed in the state's custody. Well, I picked my son up, but I knew that I couldn't keep him at my place because there was over 26 counts of things wrong with it, and it was about ready to be condemned. So, trying to be responsible because I didn't want to keep him there and I didn't want to put him in health risk because of everything wrong with my place, I called my half-sister. I thought, you know, her husband works up in St. Louis. It would be more reasonable for me to call her, and she would be able, you know, if she says that she can, you know, she would be able to bring him up, and, you know, I'd be able to see him as much as I can while trying to come up with the money to get into a new place. I mean, as hard as it was, I was like, you know, I'm going to have to break my lease. I don't know how much they're going to charge me for that. And I'm still going to have to put new money down on a security deposit. That's a lot of money. Because I just literally moved in. So, like, I signed a year lease where that would have been a year's worth of friggin' rent that I would have had to come up with breaking the lease. Even with that being said, so she agreed. She was like, yeah, you know, 3 weeks to a month, that's, you know, it's nothing. It's no more than a freaking vacation, and it's still in between preschool and kindergarten. So, you know, she was okay with it. She ended up picking him up, which wasn't the issue. She told me I could talk to him as much as I want, and she'd bring him up on weekends and when I'm off work so that I can spend time with him. And, you know, I thought, you know, this was going to be good. I could come up with the money and come home and all is well. Well, not even 48 hours after he was with her, I get told he's getting placed in the state's custody. From there, I had to jump through all kinds of hoops. I was told I was not allowed to see or speak to him until I jumped through these hoops. And when I did see him, it had to be supervised. Now, mind you, I don't do drugs. I don't have anything more on my record than a derelict vehicle charge, and that was because the car I was fixing up, it had a few problems with it, but it was sitting next to my mom's house, and it didn't have a car cover, and apparently in the town that my mom lives in, that they consider that an abandoned car if it doesn't have a car cover over it and if it's not in a driveway. And I didn't know that at the time, and so, you know, that's why that's on my record. Yay. But it wouldn't be there. If it wasn't there, I'd have a clean record. So, I mean, I never had any problems. There was no abuse or anything like that. I always did everything I could to make sure he had everything he needed. He always had food on the table, clothes on his back, everything. And if for some reason I ever needed help, my mom was right there making sure that she'd help me when she could, which I'm very grateful for. I was denied having him over for Christmas. I was denied having him over for his birthday. We actually spent Christmas and birthday in a McDonald's about an hour and a half from where I was living at. I asked for visitations to be a bit closer because I currently do not drive, and at that time I definitely didn't drive. Not because I don't want to, but because I've never learned how. I spent most of my life in foster care, so I never really had anybody to teach me. And, you know, my sister, she knew this. She knew that it was difficult for me to get from point A to point B, and my only form of transportation was my mom and my stepdad. You know, they had me doing psych evals, drug tests, you know, all this stuff I've passed. I mean, I did my parenting classes, I've done psych evals, I've done drug test after drug test, drug test, passed them all. But it still wasn't good enough. At the end of the day, after jumping through all these hoops and still doing supervised visitations at McDonald's, I ended up losing my job. My job was like, I get you're dealing with a lot. I get that this is really hard for you and you're going through court and all this stuff. But we're running a business and, we can't have somebody who's calling off this much. And if I didn't call off and I didn't show up to these things, then I wasn't being a good mom. So it's like, what do I do? At that point, whenever they did fire me, I had been living in my apartment. I got into a better apartment and I was living there for about 7 months. And, I was doing everything I could. I mean, Jaden had his own room and it was a gorgeous apartment. It was within walking distance to my work at that time. And I was just absolutely devastated that I lost it. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, well, why didn't your husband, get a job and, pick up the slack? Well, he was from the UK. And I don't know if anybody really knows much about immigration, but from what my understanding was that, according to immigration, they said that I would have to be the one paying for everything. And I made more than enough to be able to support me, him, Jaden, and fully survive and live comfortably. That was not the issue. But he was not able to work until he got his green card and all that good stuff, which was, a very long process. And it cost very, 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 it was just freaking expensive. Let me just put it that way. But yeah, to make a long story short, so I ended up losing my job, and it was either I was going to stay at a homeless shelter and then my husband get deported, and then them tell me that me living in a homeless shelter isn't good enough for Jaden, that I couldn't have him back because I was living in a homeless shelter and didn't have a sufficient place for us to live, because I didn't have a job. And, there was just many things that I knew that they would say. And I was really upset and freaking out over the whole situation. And so his parents was like, well, if you guys come back, he can go to work here and you guys can save up some money because British currency is worth more in the U.S. than it is, converting U.S. dollars to British money. So they were like, you guys can come over here and, have a place to stay and, he can work and you guys can save money and then go back over when you have more, and you'll have more money than what you left with. And, it shouldn't take that long. So I talked to, this DFS, which was actually a company called Great Circle, which I don't know if anybody knows anything about them, but in my opinion, they're a complete joke, because they aren't even DFS, but they were taking over the case, which I thought was kind of stupid, but that's neither here nor there either. But the caseworker was like, yeah, as long as you keep the communication, that's all that matters, keep the communication. Well, I did everything humanly possible to keep this communication, and still, I was told not even a month after I get over there that, sorry, Facebook is an adequate way to communicate, and you can't talk to or see your son until you get back to the U.S. Well, at that point, we just got there, and it was going to take us a little bit of money and a little bit of time to get to the point where we could go back. And they knew this. They knew that's why we were there. And they knew that I was doing everything I could to give Jaden everything he needed. And still, they didn't take my rights. I still have my rights. I am doing everything humanly possible to try to be a part of my child's life, and constantly I'm being denied. There's constantly that freaking wall. Now, mind you, this Great Circle caseworker, her and my sister decided they were gonna, be friends on Facebook. They were gonna be besties and just up each other's butt 24/7, which, is conflict of interest as it is. But still, like, regardless, that's a whole nother thing in itself. But, I mean, I really got screwed in this whole situation. I mean, right down to even before I left. And I really believe it's because I didn't have any representation. So, if anybody else is out there that's going through something like this, get a lawyer, even if it's a free one, because if not, you're going to be royally screwed. Especially if, you know, you're in a small town and they just don't really care and they would rather just do whatever convenient. Because not only was I in foster care myself as a child, no fault of my mother's, my dad actually abandoned me as a kid, which, you know, not trying to give a sob story or anything, but my dad actually abandoned me as a kid, which caused me to be in foster care. And so, therefore, that was, in my opinion, why I feel that they were trying to make an example out of me. Not only was Jaden born when I was 18, but I was also in foster care. So I really think that they were trying to make an example out of me. All this time, you know, and when I did come back to the U.S., you know, I was back and I've been back for over a year, and it's still no communication. I'm not allowed to see him. I'm not allowed to speak to him. I haven't even got an updated picture. Like, it's really retarded. And the saddest thing is, it's not even the court saying it. It's my sister. My own family is telling me, I'm sorry, you can't see or speak to him. And it doesn't matter how many hoops you jump through, it's just not going to be good enough. Like, I can't tell you how many freaking text messages I would write him all the freaking time. I would send text messages to my sister's phone telling him good morning and I love you and I miss you and I hope you're doing okay. Did it matter? No, she still didn't care. If anything, she fought me harder. Oh, well, you should have thought about that 6 years ago. Thought about that? Dude, like, I was working full time, okay? I wasn't doing drugs. I barely drank. And anyways, I was over 21, so if I wanted to drink, I could. But it's not like I was an alcoholic. I've definitely am not freaking psychotic, because if I was, I wouldn't have passed my psych eval. Think about that one. I mean, you know, it's freaking retarded. Like, you know, and one of the biggest things that is bugging me the most right now is not only did I miss a huge part of my son's life, so did my family. My mom, you know, she got toxic shock syndrome when I was 12. She lost 8.5 digits on her hands and right below the knees on both legs. And, you know, she fought every day to be the best she could be and to get her life back. She learned to walk again. She went to college. She learned to drive again. You know, there's so many things that she overcame. But that baby, my son, was her pride and joy. That was her grandbaby. She's so proud of her grandkids. And she loves him so much. And not only did I not, you know, get to spend time with him, nor did I get to talk to him or get pictures, neither did she. My grandmother, who is 79 years old, almost 80, hasn't got to see or speak to him. And Gina's like, oh, well, I promise I'll bring him around. She never brings him around. She has no intentions of bringing him around. Nobody on my side of the family has got to see or speak to my son. Even whenever he first got put into her temporary guardianship, whenever he would act out, like, she would just do really stupid stuff. Like, if he would start showing emotions and acting out because he missed being at home, he missed his family, instead of her dealing with it like a normal civilized human being, she would throw him in a psych ward, which, in my opinion, is crap. And the fact that the state of Missouri just sat there and did nothing about it. There was several times that there was I got notice saying that there was allegations of sexual abuse going on, but there was not enough substantial evidence for them to do anything about it. Like, I'm sorry. If a child that young is saying that stuff, there's no way, they're making it up. No way. But even back to going about, my family not getting to see or speak to him, this has gone on so freaking long. My mom was doing everything she could to keep herself going and do good. We found out my stepdad has stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Soon as I moved back to Missouri, we found this out. And then about a month or so ago, we find out my mom has stage 4 lung cancer and that it has spread to her brain. And then on Tuesday, she passed away. I've been pleading for my son to be able to say goodbye. I was so scared that he would not even get to say goodbye, that she would not get to see him before she passed. And exactly what I was scared of is what happened. My sister refused to let him go to the layout, and I know he's not going to be there tomorrow for the funeral. And it really hurts. Not so much for me, but for my mom. She didn't get to say goodbye. And now even more for him, because he's not going to get that opportunity of closure. He's not going to get to say goodbye like he should. It was a closed casket, okay? There was pictures. It was no more than like a memorial service with a great big box, okay? It's not like he'd be scarred for life. He would have had a chance to be around family, people that love and care about him, and he would have had that emotional support. I even asked if my grandma Jean, who my sister is very, very close with, could take him. She refused. She refused to let him go. All because she had to hold some grudge. I mean, this is the same woman, okay, who, when I first contacted her to tell her my mom was sick, instead of her calling, if you're going to call, fine. But instead of her calling and saying, I'm sorry to hear you're sick, I hope you feel better, something polite. This is the same woman who called up to my mother's hospital room while she was dying, okay? And told her that she's a lying fucking cunt and needs to quit. That she needs to quit being overly dramatic because it's not cute, it's not funny, blah, 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 whatever the hell she said along those lines. Like, she just went off on my mom. And I had to hear it from my mom, who's dying, that she was that disrespectful, that rude. And it worries me, because if she's that rude to her on her deathbed, what's she gonna be like whenever, when she goes to tell my son that his grandma, somebody who he cares about, that he has known his whole life, is gone? That she passed away. Like, how is she gonna handle that? Is she gonna be that rude? I mean, I've seen how she's acted this whole freaking time with everything else. And it really worries me. And I really wish I could be there. I wish I could be the one to tell him. I wish I could be the one to comfort him. But I can't. She won't let me. The most I could do is write him a letter. The most I can do is exactly what I'm doing. Go to my counseling. Finish up my parenting plan. And you know what? That's exactly what I've been doing. I have a lawyer now. I'm doing everything I can. And honestly, when I went to my counselor, they gave me a list of books, recommended books for children about grief and loss. Well, I went ahead and made a copy of this list of different books, I went ahead and highlighted, the different sections that I think would be good to look into getting for my son. I wrote on the top, Jaden, I love you and I miss you. I wish I could be there to comfort you. Remember, no matter what happens in life, I will always love you and you will always be my little boy. Alright, camera died. But yeah, so I said, I will always love you and you'll always be my little boy. Love always and forever, Mommy. Hugs and kisses. So yeah, I have that. And I also took it upon myself, which, hold on, I'll go get it. Okay, so I also took it upon myself. I thought that, I can't be there to show him, physically and tell him that, it's okay and give him that support that he needs physically. I can't give him a hug. I can't do any of that stuff, right? Well, I figured, what's going to be easier and what's going to make this process a little bit, easier on him. Well, I did, however, get him this. See? From the Easter Bunny. And I figured that, not that gifts fix everything, and it's not going to make his pain any less, but I figured at least it gives him a little bit of something to take his mind off of everything that's going on, and it's a little something to show that, I care and that I was thinking of him, and I just want him to be happy. I hope that he gets it. I'm going to be sending it home with my grandmother tomorrow at the burial, probably before, if she gets there in more than enough time. If not, it'll be in the car, sitting there waiting for her to take it home afterwards. I don't know, I really wish I could be there for him. I wish I could comfort him. It's a very hard situation to go through. And no matter which way I keep looking at this, I got a very long road ahead of me. And I know this. I've been living, before my mom got sick, I was living here taking care of her and helping taking care of her, and helping taking care of my stepdad, the best that I could, as well as trying to save up money and do everything I need to get Jaden to be able to come home. The only thing I really had left on my parenting plan was my counseling, which, I've been doing, and I have, I've been doing that faithfully, even right down to the day after my mom passed. I had a counseling appointment, and I went, and it's been really helpful, and my counselor's so sweet and so helpful, and, the old me, the teenage me would have been like, I don't need to talk to somebody, I got friends, I got family, but, it helps. It really does. And I don't know. I wish so much that she could just be civil and wake up one day and realize, we're family, and my son needs his mom. He needs his family while he's young. He needs that love, that support. He needs his mom. He needs his family. And keeping him from me is nothing more than parental alienation. And honestly, that's child abuse. Parental alienation is child abuse. I could talk for freaking hours about this.
I mean, there's even been points in times where, right down to whenever it came to my visitations with him, where I was told, whenever I asked for it to be moved closer, and they told me no, and I was like, it's really, really far. Whenever I did have these visits, they were like, well, if you love your son, you would just walk. It's an hour and 30 minutes, there. I know I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm just, with everything going on, but like, I love my son. If I didn't love my son, I wouldn't write him every day. I wouldn't do everything in my power. I wouldn't be this upset if I didn't love him and if I didn't care about him. And why would I be freaking out because worried about his well-being and his state of mind throughout all this if I didn't really care? Like, that makes no sense. I mean, why would I? It makes no sense. And it's such a headache. I just want him home. I just want to be a part of his life. I don't want to miss any more time. I am tired of fighting her, but at the same time, I'll never give up. That's my baby. I will never, ever, ever give up. I don't care if I am as old as my grandmother, 79 years old, I will still fight to be a part of his life. There will be nothing in the world that could stop me. I don't care if I'm on my own deathbed. I will still fight every tooth and nail, any obstacle I can to be a part of his life because I love him more than life itself. That is my baby. And any mother out there that would not fight is a piece of shit in my eyes. I mean, I'm not a situational mom. I'm not when it's convenient for me, I'm going to be a mom. No, I want the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to see the ups, the downs, everything. I want it all. Because that's my son, it's my baby, and I just want to be there. And I deserve to be there. He deserves to have me in his life. And I don't know who my sister thinks she is on thinking she can play God. But the last I checked, I was the one laying on that table and giving birth to him. I was the one who would change his diapers and would feed him. I was the one who freaking made sure that I had parents as teachers in his life and put him in preschool and had nurses and newborns helping with things as he was little. It was me. And I would do it all over again if I had to. If I was being irresponsible, I would have just left him stay with me in that apartment. I wouldn't have asked for help. And to be told that I had to be mentally incompetent or on drugs to allow my parents to watch him is bullshit. She was not the one that said that to me. The judge was. And that was just bullshit in itself. But yeah. I did everything humanly possible to try to be a good mom then, and I'm still trying to be a good mom now. And I want nothing more than to make sure that he's happy, that he's safe, and that he has everything that he needs so he can be successful in life. And that's what a parent should do. They should look out for the well-being of their child. So, regardless if you're a young mom, or if you're a mom going through a hard time, or regardless what the situation is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to look for representation if need be. Because if I would have had representation from the beginning, because I thought to myself, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm looking out for his best interests. I'm doing everything a normal mother would do for her child. There's no way the courts are going to take and, say that I'm doing anything wrong because I did everything I thought was right. Even with that not being good enough, I really think if I would have had representation, that would have helped. My mom went up to bat for me in court. They didn't want to hear a word she had to say. My stepdad went up to bat for me in court. They didn't care to hear what he had to say either. So, they even asked about grandparents' rights. The judge completely dismissed it. Completely. It's now come down to the fact that my mom passed away and my stepdad's dying. The two main people that has, besides myself, besides my grandmother, who has loved that little boy more than anything, who was there the day he was born, who held that baby in their arms on his first day of life, they would do anything for that little boy. They just love him so much. And the fact that my mom could not even spend time with him on her dying days, it kills me inside. It hurts me so bad. And to know that my stepdad is dying as well, and he may never get to say bye either. Regardless of as many fights my stepdad and I have had, whatever we've ever gone through, he loved that little boy. He would do anything for that little boy. And that's what makes me so sad. So I am going to end this video. Thank you for watching. And if you ever, need somebody to listen, I'm here. If you're going through what I'm going through, I'm here. You're not alone. I understand. Thank you.